Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our driver ratings for the Italian Grand Prix. We're going to give each driver a score between 1 and 10 for their performance, and I promise I shall only mention the McLaren incident very briefly, probably. Let's get into this. Before we do, remember to like and subscribe, and of course, a huge shout out to the members: Dakota, the Joyous James, Rowan Myers, Simon Strudel, Michael Johnson, Mr. Eurovision 986, Philip Doganzik, No Edam on Sandwiches, Sarah Jowett, and Andy Jones. To become a member, click the link in the description down below. You become a Mansell Mustache member. You can have all your early videos, AI Racing World Champion to get your shout outs. If you want to just support the channel in general, there's the You're a Marshall tier as well. You can check that all out in the description. And why not give the video a hype? Still don't know what it means, but apparently it's good. Shall we get started then with everyone's favourite team, Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber, and it's another good points result for one Gabriele Bortoleto as he continues his quest to become Rookie of the Year. Great qualifying for him in P7, turns it into a P8 finish. Does benefit, of course, from Kimi Antonelli getting a penalty towards the end of the race. That promoted him one place, but overall, still very, very good from Gabriele Bortoleto, getting some really good points. And, in a race like this, where his teammate doesn't start the race, all the pressure is on him to deliver, because he's the only one out there for that team now, and deliver he did. Good points, good times, 10 out of 10 for one Bortoleto. Across to Nico Hülkenberg there, and I may have alluded ever so slightly to what happened to him in my review of Bortoleto's race, but let's just break it down a little bit more, because Nico Hülkenberg actually had his best qualifying of the year, well, joint best. It was only 12th, which, I'm still finding shocking this year as to, how Nico Hülkenberg's qualifying is just nothing. I mean, a man who was famous for putting that Haas car in places where it shouldn't really be in qualifying, seemingly, over the course of one lap, can't get anything out of the Sauber car, which is a shame. But yeah, joint best qualifying of 12th, but unfortunately, his race would end on the formation lap where he was told to pull in and retire the car. He receives a did not start, and I will not be giving him a rating for this race. We're just going to leave it blank. I feel that's a bit harsh. And so we move now then to Williams and one Alex Albon. And Williams is an interesting one because I had very high expectations going into them, especially after seeing how they performed in the first couple of practice sessions. They did not necessarily meet those expectations, especially in qualifying. Bad qualifying for Albon sees him start the race in 14th place, but he recovers beautifully to finish up in 7th. A really good recovery drive. The Williams car normally always does relatively well in Monza. It didn't do as well as I had possibly hoped, but still, some really good points, a really good recovery for Albon. It is a 10 out of 10. We go across now to Carlos Sainz, who had a better qualifying, ever so slightly, in 13th place, but in the race itself finished down in 11th. And after watching back the incident between him and Oliver Bearman, I think that's the second week in a row that Carlos Sainz has been involved in an incident where the penalty went to the wrong person, because for me, that was really all on Sainz. Now, you could argue, why didn't Ollie Bearman just slam on the brakes and allow Carlos Sainz to just go past him? And I'd say that's not what racing is all about. Ollie Bearman realistically had nowhere to go. Sainz just closed the door right on him and hit him, in my opinion. So I would put him more at the blame there. He did get some damage, which seemingly was the end of his pace, finishing up in 11th. Overall, I don't know what to give him, really. A 6? I've written down a 7, but talking about it out loud, as it does sometimes, just changes my mind, and it's going to a 6 out of 10. Across now to Isaac Hadjar, who had his worst ever qualifying in 16th place. The first time in his career he is out in Q1. They would take this opportunity to change some engine parts on the car. He started from the pit lane, and despite all of this, still finished in the points. 1 point to be exact for Isaac Hadjar, finishing up in P10. And you know what? That 1 point is very, very important. He's now moved ahead of Nico Hulkenberg in the driver's standings. If you look at the fridge back there, we can see he's now in 9th. So, doing tremendously well is Isaac Hadjar. Really, really good stuff from him. He had a bit of a dip towards the summer break. There was a few races in a row where he wasn't really scoring points, but he's come back from that summer break. Of course, podium last time out. Really good recovery for him here. It's going all really well for Isaac Hadjar, and I'm going to give him a 10 out of 10. I've been saying since about, what was it, the Monaco Grand Prix, maybe a bit before then, I've been saying that he's been the Rookie of the Year for me. And I remember at the time I said that he was the Rookie of the Year, and I was saying some people are going to say it's Antonelli because Antonelli has more points. And I said, and I quote, Kimi Antonelli should have more points. He's in a Mercedes. Isaac Hadjar is doing really, really well. And I remember getting some goddamn awful comments for that on TikTok, of all places. But who's laughing now? He is better than Kimi Antonelli. He's doing far better. Well done, Isaac Hadjar, on your P10. Really good stuff. Cross to his teammate now, Liam Lawson, who, again, it's this thing with Lawson where he has good pace, but there's always something that seemingly happens. So qualifying wasn't great. He finished up in 18th place in qualifying. He started the race in 18th, I should say, anyway. I think he qualified dead last, and he'd started the race in 18th place. He would finish in 14th, so he gained some places, but there was the little incident between him and Yuki where they had contact, and I think they both received damage from there, and then from there, we were just nowhere. And as much as, Hadjar has come back from the summer break and he's feeling much better and, coming back off the back of that slump, I feel like with Lawson, it's gone the other way. Before the summer break, he was going really well. He was getting his confidence back. It looked like he was more of the Liam Lawson that we had towards the end of last year and the Liam Lawson we had towards the start of this year. But he's come back from the summer break, and it's 2 races in a row with little incidents involved. It's 2 races in a row where he's not really performing to how I feel he should be. He's much better than what he's showing at the minute, and hopefully it's just a little blip for him and he's back in a couple of weeks' time for Azerbaijan. But yeah, it's a bit concerning that we're maybe reverting back to the Liam Lawson of the start of the season, which I do not want to see. For this race, though, I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. Across to Haas now, and Ollie Bearman qualified in 11th place, just missing out on the top 10, but he finished up in 12th. Now, I've already spoken about that incident between him and Sainz, where I don't think he really could do much there. But yeah, I think for both of the Haas lads, it was rather an anonymous race for both of them. I think Ocon we'll talk more, but that was he was kind of defined by that penalty in that race there. But yeah, for Bearman, that's the only real thing I remember seeing of him. I'm going to give him a 5 and just move on from there to Esteban Ocon, who, yeah, I thought the penalty was rather harsh between him and Lance Stroll. I don't think he was really deserving of a 5-second penalty. It just seemed like one of those things, especially in such an early moment of the race. And then from there, it seemed like they were just waiting for a safety car, or maybe a virtual safety car, to pit under to try and negate the penalty as much as they can. But of course that never arrived, so he just waited and waited and waited until the very end of the race, pit then, and came back out and was basically in the same place he started, because he qualified 15th and finished up in 15th. So what is there to say, really? Not much. I mean, I'm just going to give him a 5, and we're gonna move on. That's the plan, and we'll move on to Franco Colapinto, who the Alpine, my God, was dreadful this weekend. Really, really rather bad. So he does out-qualify Pierre Gasly. He qualified in 17th place to Gasly's 19th place. But then from there, he just finishes up in 17th place. Only beats Lance Stroll of the cars that were remaining at the end of the race. And that is because of something we shall talk about later on. But yeah, I mean, they were just absolutely nowhere. And I'm struggling to choose what to give them in terms of scores here, because I mean, what do you go off of? They had an awful car and they finished last. I mean, that's basically what happens, isn't it? Oh God, I mean, I'll give Franco a 4. I'd written down a 5, but I feel like maybe a 4 is more lenient. And then we go to Gasly here. Oh, that's Stroll. Gasly. And with Gasly, he qualified 19th, started from the pit lane, finished in 16th place. I mean, he beat Colapinto, he beat Stroll. 5. Awful from the Alpines. Really, really bad. I don't have much else to say on them at this point. Let's move across, though, to someone I have a lot to say about. This man, Lance Stroll. Because there's a lot to discuss here. An awful lot to discuss. As there normally is with Lance Stroll, I normally find quite a bit to say about him. But if you look at this on paper, you see that he qualified 16th and he finished 18th, which was the last driver of all the drivers involved in the race at the end. So you look at that and go, well, that's a bad race. And yes, it is. But I've got a little bit of the mouse sticky stuff has come off and it's stuck on my hand now. So, sorry, I get very easily distracted. Yeah, so it is a bad race. But there is more than meets the eye about Lance Stroll's race that I would like to discuss. And I'm going to do so now. We're bringing up my old best friend, the lap-by-lap board. So, if we click on Lance Stroll here, we can see basically what happened through his race. And it was a good race. You may be shocked to know, because look, he just kind of starts in 16th, stays in 16th, gains places from people pitting rather early, and he just keeps on going and keeps on going. And here he is, he's in the points, he's 8th or 9th here, he's beefing with Russell a little bit for a moment or two, beefing with Hamilton here for a moment or two, beefing with Antonelli here as well, whilst everyone else is pitting. He makes his tyres last all the way to lap 49. And then what happens? He goes in the pits and he falls all the way down to 18th place, where he finishes the race a lap down. So, what the hell happened here? I do wonder, because it wasn't shown on television. This is a list of every pit stop that happened during the race. I'm going to have to move my face here, so you can. I'm going to move me over. Oh dear, this is not working anymore. I'll go over here, so you can see the numbers below me. There they are, down there. So, it's in order. So you see the first pit stop was Liam Lawson, pits on lap 9. The time for the pit stop was 24.15 seconds, so that's the time from the pit entry to the pit exit there, 24. Now, as we scroll down, we see 24, 25, 26. That's about average. That's what most people are getting there. Some good pit stops all the way down here. What we see here is the Lando Norris pit stop, the most analysed pit stop in the history of Formula One. So this, as we all know by now, is a bad pit stop. 5.9 seconds that pit stop was, very, very slow, resulted in, from pit entry to pit exit, 27.49 seconds. Bad pit stop. That's not what you want. Let's keep on going. Oh look, it's Lance Stroll! 38.418 seconds his pit stop was. So, Lando Norris has the worst pit stop in all of human history. Lance Stroll's was 11 seconds longer. That's how bad it got here. And to rub it in even more, let's go to the bottom of this list. Here's Esteban Ocon. In his pit stop, he served a 5-second penalty. His total pit stop was 8 seconds quicker than Lance Stroll's pit stop here. So, it all went wrong in the pit stops for Lance Stroll. Well, I say the pit stops, just the one. Aston really screwing him, because realistically, he pits from 8th. He should have come round about maybe 11th, 12th, 13th on fresh tyres. Maybe he could have pushed for the last points positions. Definitely should not have been 18th place. But, thankfully, for all of us, F1 put out this video. And they do this after every race. It's a wonderful little piece of media where just every driver reacts to their race. And thankfully, Lance Stroll is here to break down his race for us. So we're going to hear a little bit of the end of Colapinto's interview, then we'll go right into Stroll's interview so he can tell us exactly what happened in his race. Let's listen to
up for this race.
Hey Lance, where you hung out there, I guess waiting for a safety car, waiting for something to happen. Was that the best you could have done today, do you think, with what you had?
Yeah,
In terms of how the car felt, talk me through it.
it was okay.
Yeah, very frustrating.
So thanks for Lance Stroll there. Really gripping stuff. I'm going to put myself back over here. Yeah, really, really interesting from Stroll there, giving us the insight into where it kind of all went wrong. So how do we score this in the end? Because ultimately, not his fault. I think he did relatively well to keep the tyres going for as long as he did, and then was just kind of hung out to dry. I guess it's a 5. Let's move on. Fernando Alonso now, and of course we all know what happened here. So qualified well in 8th place, was doing relatively well until a suspension failure ended his race. We saw he was up with like the likes of Bortoleto around there in the lower top 10, so was on track for points if all had kind of gone smoothly, and obviously it did not. But yeah, it's a hard one to score because obviously he was out on like lap 20 something, I believe. So there's a lot of 5s being thrown out, but that is a 5 out of 10. Sorry, Fernando. Hopefully, at one point in your life, you will experience some good luck. Speaking of good luck, this man needs some good luck as well. It was better for Kimi Antonelli. You've got to admit, it was definitely better than it has been recently, but still not good. To the point now that in the championship he is being beaten by Alex Albon in a Williams. So yeah, not a great look. But qualifying was good. Qualified in 6th place, which is about where you would have expected the second Mercedes car to be on pace this weekend. But kind of just went backwards in the race. Also got that penalty for pushing Albon out wide. I believe they categorised it as driving erratically. Gave him the penalty that would lose him 8th place. Yeah, a step in the right direction, but not a massive step, if you'll get my drift there. And you know what? Another 5. We're giving out loads of 5s. So that's a 5 for Antonelli as well. To his teammate now, George Russell. And George Russell had a very George Russell race where he qualified in the top 5 and finished in the top 5. And by the top 5, I mean 5th. Qualified 5th, finished in 5th. At one point was on the back of Leclerc towards the start of the race, but realistically never had the pace to truly challenge him there. Was far too quick to be challenged by the likes of your Albons or Bortoletos, and Hamilton was kind of starting too far back as he was fighting his way up through the grid. Wasn't fast enough to challenge the likes of Leclerc, the McLarens, or of course Max Verstappen. So yeah, just had his own little race, and it went well, I guess. Some solid points. You can have, it's either a 7 or an 8. I'll be nice. 8 out of 10 for one George Russell. Let's talk about Red Bull now, with Yuki Tsunoda. Here he is. Yuki Tsunoda qualified okay. 9th place in qualifying. I mean, he did qualify 10th and then was, of course, promoted by Hamilton's penalty. But yeah, 9th place is better than it has been for the Red Bull second driver in the past. And then in the race itself, finished up in 13th place. In that video I showed you before of the drivers' reactions to after the race, I was quite disappointed by what Tsunoda said, if I'm truly honest with you, because he basically laid the entire blame for his bad race on Liam Lawson and the little incident that they had. But again, if we pull up our good friend here, we can see not Lance Stroll, let's get rid of that there, but Tsunoda, we can see that he basically had this pit stop, I think on lap 19, lap 20. I think it was actually, he'd already fallen to 14th place before he pit, and then was just kind of round here. Then it was around here that the incident happened. I think it was lap 27, maybe, that the incident happened between the two of them. So Yuki was already at the back of the pack when the contact happened, and then was just nowhere. So I don't think it's right to fully blame Liam Lawson for his bad performance, but that's what he's chosen to do. And, I hope he can stand with that. But yeah, really not good. In a weekend where the Red Bull was excellent, for me, easily the fastest car on the field, for Yuki to go 9th to 13th is not good enough. And, you can argue that maybe he had a different setup, because I know Max was fighting to have the specific setup that he had, so maybe they didn't give that to Yuki. But even so, the Red Bull was in a good window this weekend, and Yuki got nothing from it. Starts a brand new streak of races without scoring points. It was bad. Sorry, Yuki. 3 out of 10. All those people who a few weeks ago after Spa who were going, yeah, now he's being treated equally, now you'll see he'll definitely deliver. Since Spa, he's scored, I believe, 1 point. Here's Max Verstappen. What a perfect weekend for him. Qualifies first, setting the fastest F1 qualifying lap in history, and then, of course, just goes on to relatively dominate the race. Now, there was a little incident between him and Lando at the start, where he gave Lando the position back, then had to take the lead back again, but on lap 4. Then from lap 4 to the end, never really looked back at all. Just did the classic Verstappen thing of absolutely dominating. The biggest winning margin since Max Verstappen's Brazil 2024 victory. The fastest ever F1 race. That's the thing as well. The fastest F1 race ever and the biggest winning margin of the year. It was utter domination in a way that only Max Verstappen has really been able to do in recent times. Absolutely perfect. 10 out of 10 from Max Verstappen. To Ferrari now, and a bit of a disappointing weekend for them. They looked quite good at the start of the weekend in the practice sessions, but that didn't really translate over to the race itself. Going at Lewis Hamilton here, qualified 5th, so decent qualifying, but of course had that penalty hanging over from the Dutch Grand Prix, which meant that he started in 10th place, and a decent recovery saw him finish 6th. And realistically, he wasn't too far behind George Russell at the end. If we have a look at the actual results of the race, we'll pull that up there. So at the end, he was just about 4.5 seconds off of Russell. And from starting in 10th, I think that's pretty decent, to be fair. So, yeah, good job from Hamilton. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10, I think, for Hamilton this weekend. One of his better outings in the Ferrari, but still, not quite where he would want to be, I think, but definitely a step in the right direction. Charles Leclerc is next, who I think also had a decent weekend, qualified in 4th, finished up in 4th. Looking at his interviews after the race, he did seem quite disappointed, quite down with the results, and I can understand that, of course, coming off the back of winning here last year. I'm sure he went into this race with quite high expectations that didn't come to pass, but looking at the pace of the cars involved, he was never really going to do anything better than 4th unless we had another engine failure from the top 3. So, realistically, I think that was the best he could have done. That being said, I'm not going to give him it's a hard one, because he did a fantastic first couple laps when he was fighting with Piastri, taking the 3rd place back in 2, and he said in his interview afterwards that kind of cooked his tyres a little bit. He had to pay for that later on in the stint. It's not a 10, because I'm not going to give Leclerc a 10 for finishing 4th, but I will give him a solid 9. I think that was very good from him. And across to the McLaren lads now. Like I said, I'm not going to focus too much on the whole pit stop drama thing. I've said all I wanted to say about that yesterday, and in the last 24 hours, my opinion has not changed. If anything, it's got a little bit stronger. This morning, I woke up very angry, and I was like, disqualify them both from the championship. But now I've calmed down a little bit. It's all good. So Oscar Piastri, though, qualifies 3rd, finishes in 3rd. Easily the 2nd fastest of the 2 McLarens across the race weekend. Was never really in contention with Lando, definitely not in contention with Max Verstappen. In a way, and it's going to sound like an insult here, and I don't mean it that way, but it was a very Lando Norris performance from Oscar Piastri. You know, we see that kind of stuff from Lando all the time, where he loses a position in the opening lap, has to fight to get it back. By the time he's fought to get it back, his teammate's down the road. And that's what we saw from Oscar Piastri this weekend, especially with him fighting Leclerc at the start, and then was about 4 or 5 seconds off the back of Lando throughout most of the race. Then, of course, the pit stop thing happens, the team order thing happens. He lets Lando go back through, and then they say, right, you're free to fight now until the end, and there's no fight from Piastri at all. Relative, I think, was out of DRS within a lap or a lap and a half. Even his fastest lap wasn't on the softs at the end. It had been a few laps before. You know, Lando Norris sets a new track record on the final lap of the race. I think Oscar's fastest lap of the entire race was about 3 or 4 tenths slower than that, and that wasn't even on the last lap. So Piastri wasn't really anywhere near Lando. The good news for Piastri, of course, is that the Azerbaijan race is coming up next, and last year he was incredible there. So hopefully he'll be able to emulate that going into the next race. But yeah, definitely second best of the McLaren lads this weekend. He will get a 7 out of 10. And finally, Mr. Lando Norris here qualifies in second place. Very, very close between him and Max Verstappen for pole position. Does take the lead at the start, but then loses it again after about lap 4. Then was never really in contention for the win from there, but a very solid second place. And again, going to bring up the pit stop thing, but yeah, that all happened. Loses the place to Oscar Piastri. And just to kind of go over what I briefly said yesterday, he had the pace to get P2 on merit. And I think, you know, obviously he was booed on the podium, and I don't think that's anything to do with him as a person or that, you know, the Italians strongly disliked Lando Norris. I just don't think that they liked how that race ended. And that could have been avoided by just letting them fight, because all the evidence we had seen basically all weekend pointed to Lando was far quicker and would have got P2 on merit for sure. So, you know, he did a great job. Ultimately didn't win the race, but a good P2. He's getting a 9 out of 10 for Lando Norris there. Very good all round. So, 10s go to Max Verstappen, Isaac Hadjar, Alex Albon, and Gabriel Bortoleto. Lowest score of the weekend goes to Yuki Tsunoda with a 3 out of 10. We'll be back on Wednesday for the Stop and Go F1 Wednesday Fun Club. This Friday there'll be a video out on the channel looking at an auction of all Michael Schumacher's old stuff. It's a bit of a weird one, but that's coming out on Friday. Of course, if you're a Mansell Mustache member, you can watch that right now. And then next week, we'll be back for all things Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Preview on the Friday, qualifying reviews on the Saturday, F1 race review on the Sunday, driver ratings for that on the Monday. Then, yeah, is there F2 as well? Yes, there is F2, so F2 will be there as well. It'll also be a Wednesday Fun Club between now and then as well. My goodness, so much content on this channel. If I wasn't subscribed already, I'd subscribe for sure. What a great time for everyone involved. I hope you've had a great time. We're back later. See you then. Goodbye.